Robert Plank Show, episode 62. How is your online business and your personal life doing on a scale from 1 to 10? You wouldn't invite a thief into your house, so why would you allow thoughts that steal your joy to make themselves at home in your mind? Eleanor Roosevelt says, "Great minds discuss ideas, average minds discuss events, but small minds discuss people." Brian Tracy says that, "I've found that luck is quite predictable. If you want more luck, take more chances, be more active, and show up more often." And Dan Kennedy says, "1 in 60 are millionaires in the US. 1 in 1460 are millionaires in the world." I'm Robert Plank. Welcome to the Robert Plank Show, where we talk about internet marketing and making money online from home. And what I want to talk to you about today is thinking in terms of a scale of 1 to 10. It's the weirdest thing that the computer programming nerd logic applies in so many ways to real world situations, especially when, if left to our own devices, we will lack common sense and we will be basically on a downward spiral into negativity and not making money and generally being unhappy. If you don't right the ship every once in a while, then that is the course that you're headed towards. But if you take a second every couple days, couple weeks to look at the bearing on the compass, so to speak, and realize that, well, if the things you're doing, if they're making you happy now but miserable later, that's not good. If the things that you're doing on a day-to-day basis are making you miserable and even happy that you're being miserable because you don't have to try, that's not good either. I mean, I don't want to list a whole bunch of sob stories, but the day that I announced to my internet marketing subscribers, and this was many years ago now, but the day I announced, and this was on a March 25th, I believe, that it was my last day of having a day job, and I haven't been on a day job since. One of the immediate replies from a customer of mine who asked for a refund of everything that he'd ever bought. And his reasoning was, "Well, cool, now you've made it and now you don't need the money." And it was kind of like almost like a negative, like revenge-based kind of a response. I sell a lot of membership courses such as Membership Q and Webinar Crusher, and one of our buyers actually asked for a refund, and his reasoning was that he was 68 years old and didn't like that there was a flashing green border on one of the parts of our video. For literally about 10 seconds, there was a flashing green border somewhere, and he didn't like that he was so old that he just couldn't handle a flashing green border and wanted a refund. I mean, there's been some kind of silly and ridiculous reasons for people asking for refunds. And the thing is, if you sell digital products online, or you sell anything online, or I guess even if you sell anything using credit cards, then you pretty much are at the mercy of credit card companies for handling refunds. But I mean, refunds are only about 1% of your sales, so it shouldn't affect more than 1% of your thoughts or your day or your decision making. But I mean, there are some silly ones. There's one person who bought a $15 plugin from us, and it worked perfectly, and he also wanted to upgrade to an additional module, but he didn't like how much the additional module cost, so he asked for a refund of both things he bought. Kind of strange. Well, we sold a course called Graphic Dashboard, which you can get at graphicdashboard.com, which shows people how to use our point-and-click templates to create banners, e-covers, DVD and book covers without Photoshop, without any kind of software at all. It's pretty cool. And in one of the modules, we showed a way to make money using this, the software. And it was only one tiny part of a whole larger course, but we got a refund request from someone who wanted their money back because they didn't believe that that part of the course worked. It's not that they tried it and it failed, or it's not that that was the entire course. It was that one little section scared this person because of their own fear. They wanted a refund for the entire course. So I'm not complaining, I'm not doing a bitch and moan session. Life goes on, but what's important to realize is that we scare ourselves a lot of the time, and only if we were a little more aware of the reasons we scare ourselves. Maybe at first, for those first couple of days, it might be almost a little painful looking inward, realizing what led us to where we are now, and that we might need to change, maybe not change our outsides, but change our way of thinking so that we make better decisions in the future, or maybe less rash decisions in the future, or maybe if something gets you upset, angry, sad, or nervous right now, if you can dissect or break up that problem into smaller pieces, or realize your triggers, or realize the people who are bringing you down, if you have a bad support system, anything like that, then you can begin to adjust. And so, I talked in a couple previous podcasts about your vocabulary, right? And how there are things like the Eskimos. Certain Eskimo tribes have 200 different words for ice, but 0 words for war. Now, why is that? Because they use the word ice all the time, and they've never been to war, so they don't have a reason to have a word for a thing that never happens. But in the same line of thinking, and I'm not going to ask you to make this list, but theoretically, if you were to sit down for about half an hour and make a list of all of the words for bad moods you could have, right? Angry, upset, infuriated, dejected. The average person, maybe not you, but the average person would probably be able to make quite a long list of negative emotions, thoughts, and feelings they'd have. And if you ask them to turn over the piece of paper and write words like, happy, joy, fruitful, all the words for, happy, positive things, I bet you that the average person would have about double the number of bad words to list as the number of good words. So the fix for that is to use more simple and use less negative words. Even just changing the words in your everyday speech will help, but using less negative words and then more positive words. Now, it sounds like kind of happy-go-lucky, foofy, self-help kind of stuff. So I'm a computer programming nerd, and a lot of the things that I do kind of apply to common sense and can apply to life. Things like, well, in programming, instead of creating all kinds of crazy things in our software program or our app, we like to create the minimum viable product version 1.0, very simple functioning program. And so that can apply in your own life, or especially even if you're in your own websites or blogs or information products, videos, membership sites. You make the minimum viable product first, and then you can go and reiterate and do a better job. So that's just one example of where programmer logic, if you can look at the architecture, right, or like the structural kind of stuff that programmers have to do without learning code, you can actually apply a lot to your business, your websites, and even your own personal life. And so what I want to share with you today is this idea of thinking in terms of a scale from 1 to 10. Okay, and if you're having trouble with always repeating the same kind of negative words, or even the positive negative words, right? The majority of people, 99% of people, if you ask how they're doing today, their answer is good. If you ask how their dinner was today, the answer is good. And you don't want to say good because that's what everyone else says, and you say it so often that that's just what you're used to saying. And so, if someone asks me how I'm doing, my answer might change. It might be awesome, fabulous, fantastic, words like that, but multi-syllable words, because I want to be more detailed about the positive things in my life and less detailed about the negative things, if that makes sense. It doesn't mean that we're totally oblivious, totally not self-aware, but we want to be leaning more towards the positive in life, because replaying the tape and reliving all that negative stuff, that's just going to bring us down, and it's so tempting, it's easy to do. It's the evil shortcut. And so think of things, instead of answering, well, how you doing today, answer on a scale of 1 to 10. 1 is the worst, 10 is the highest. So if I ask you how you're doing today, maybe the answer is 8.1. So pretty dang good, could be better, but it's not always 10 out of 10. It's not always 12 out of 10. It's on a scale of 1 to 10. And so this came into mind because if you're following us real time, I broke my ankle about a week ago. And maybe you're listening to this podcast years later, but I broke my ankle and I went into surgery. They had to put in some plates and pins. And I don't remember any of it because they put me under. But when I woke up, they did the usual hospital thing of asking you to rate your pain. If you've ever been in an emergency room, they ask you how to rate your pain. Now, you don't want to say 2 or 3 or 4 because that means you're not really in any pain, right? You don't want to get a baby aspirin to mask your pain. You don't want to get a Flintstone vitamin. But you also don't want to say a 9 or 10 because it's not like you broke your hip or you broke your giant leg bone or something. But coming out of surgery, my pain, and I was still kind of out of it, but my pain was at about a 7.2 because that was that was like the only really accurate way to tell the hospital staff, the surgeons, how much pain medicine I needed. Of course, you don't want to say my pain's at 1,000, but you don't want to say it's at a 1 because there's obviously some pain there. And so as they did this and that, then I was able to, over the course of the next few minutes, say, okay, well, now I'm at a 6.5, now I'm at about a 6.1, and I realized coming out of it that there have been many times where I've used this 1 to 10 scale in my own life and not really realized it. We went to this place called Santa Cruz a few months ago, and this is where, if you've never been there, it's really beautiful. It's in California. It's near San Jose and stuff. It's pretty far up north, so we're talking way further north than Los Angeles, further north than Santa Barbara, but kind of that area, like north, further north than Santa Barbara, but south from San Francisco. Okay, and there's like the beach and there's roller coasters there. I'm really afraid of roller coasters, and roller coasters in fact make me pretty nervous. But I can do a couple of them as long as they don't get too crazy, like go backwards or flip upside down or things like that. But after doing a couple of roller coasters, going on a couple of these rides, I started to get kind of nauseous. And I told my girlfriend, well, I'm 64% nauseous right now, and she kind of made a remark about that. And I realized it again after this last surgery that if I'm at a loss for words, then I go for that 1 to 10 kind of rating. And so that's what I would advise you to do in a couple different ways we're going to talk about today. First of all, in your personal life, if someone's asking you how your day is going, they're expecting you to say good or to say great. And that's about the only responses they get. If you go to Starbucks or McDonald's or whatever, and they ask you that, well, first of all, they ask you that because it's their job. They have to, they're trained for it. And every single person they've talked to out of the 200 people they've heard from you before today, either they ask someone how they're doing and they just respond with their order, they just treat the worker like a machine, or the answer is good or great. They're used to be treated like mindless robots. And so the weirdest thing, if you have a weird answer, then you will cause in these people what's called a pattern interrupt, and usually you'll get a laugh out of it. I didn't believe this until I started doing it, but as soon as you stop answering good or great when someone asks how you're doing, sometimes they'll think that's funny because they're just thrown and caught off guard. And I think that if you, even if you ask yourself how you're doing today, how's your mood today, going on a 1 to 10 scale, I think will help you so much more. And so how can you apply this to the other things in your business? Well, one thing that I'm going to share with you today is writing and revising especially. I mean, I know that the majority of people aren't very good writers, but in order to actually put out some content, you need to be able to put out an okay first draft, and usually the first draft is good enough, right? Like if you write an email to your subscribers, you don't have to spell check or revise that. You're shooting out a quick email. If you're posting something on Facebook or on your blog, you don't really have to go back and edit and edit and edit and edit. Well, why? Because this isn't a term paper, and you're not going to get that much more money if you fix the typos on your web pages, right? Good enough is good enough, and it's not like you're going to double or triple your income just because you fixed some typos. This isn't school anymore, where you might have gotten a C minus if you had typos, and you might get an A if you fixed typos. A few typos aren't going to kill you. But when it comes to if you're coming out with a book or something like that, you might want to spend a little more time than a blog post revising a thing like a book. Now the problem though is the same thing. We don't want to spend an hour writing a chapter of our book and then 5 hours going back and fixing all the typos. Or you might have this book that you've written or you've spoken out. And by the way, our course for you to speak out and get a book transcribed and get it published is at makeaproduct.com. Now, the good thing about transcriptions and the good thing about speaking out a book and getting it transcribed is that it's done quickly and it sounds the way that you said it. The only problem, though, is that it gets transcribed by a human, so that you're going to have to do some editing, and a spell check doesn't always get the job done. So how do you edit quickly without getting bored so you don't finish it, or without it taking 5 hours just to fix a 1 hour chapter? The answer is the scale of 1 to 10. And so what you can do is, if you have any kind of writing like a book, you go through, and if you want to print it out, that's great. That'd probably actually be better. So you print it out and you go through real quick and you just read the paragraphs quickly, even skim them, and then write a number next to each paragraph and just rate it on a scale of 1 to 10. Now, what does this do? Well, let's say you go down through your paragraphs and you write that, well, this paragraph's an 8, this is a 4, this is a 6. You could quickly go through and average those and figure out, okay, now the book I've written here is a 7.0. Okay, and you say, well, if I want to make it an 8.0 rating of a book, then you can go through the paragraphs and only focus on the ones that maybe you've written a 5 or a 6 next to. If some paragraph is, say, like an 8 or a 9, that's good enough. You don't have to make it a 10. It might not even be a 10, but just go through and only edit the problem paragraphs. And so that's what we call fixing up the low-hanging fruit. And so, I mean, can you see that just rating something on a scale of 1 to 10 really helps us to have better accuracy, especially with what the problem is and where it can be improved. So as we're winding down today's podcast, let's think about a couple of areas in your online business that, and maybe like if you say, well, you know, I need more money, or I need to build a bigger business, or things like that. Well, maybe we could cut it up into, let's just say, 10 areas. Why 10 areas? Because I need to have some kind of a number of things I'm going to figure out here. So off the top of my head, let's just say that your issues right now are maybe time management and mindset. Maybe your issues are like building the list, right? Maybe your issues are follow-ups and autoresponders. Maybe your lists are like, you know, membership retention, right? Maybe your issue is new customers. Maybe an issue is joint ventures. Maybe an issue is free traffic. Maybe an issue is paid traffic. Maybe an issue is like info products and recurring income. And then maybe an issue is big ticket sales and coaching. So this is active income. So the list I just kind of thought out just off the top of my head is: number 1, time management and mindset. Number 2, list building. Number 3, email follow-up and autoresponders. Number 4, membership retention. Number 5, new customers. Number 6, joint ventures. Number 7, free traffic. Number 8, paid traffic. Number 9, info product and recurring income. And finally, number 10, big ticket sales and coaching. So what I would like for you to do is look at that list, or maybe I'll post this list on robertplank.com/062. So copy that into a Word document or print out the first page of that blog post and just write a number next to each of those things and rate it on a scale of 1 to 10. And don't necessarily, put something at a 0, because if you have a few sales, that's more than a 0. But if you know that a real problem that you have is not emailing the list enough, then maybe you need to focus on the autoresponder section, or you need to have a 10-day follow-up sequence. That would only take you an afternoon, and you might even be able to, if you've emailed your list before, you can go and look in your autoresponders sent folder and grab the best emails you've sent, or the ones that you're the most proud of, or the ones that got the most clicks, and compile them together into an automatic follow-up sequence. So if someone new comes down into your email funnel, then they will receive that sequence. And by the way, if all of that just went over your head, you need to join our course at incomemachine.com to discover how you can set up your online empire and create a list building machine and have an automatic follow-up sequence and get all this traffic coming in automatically. But I guarantee that your business is probably under a 7 in a lot of these areas, right? Maybe you're weak on joint ventures. Maybe you're weak on free traffic. You need to start a podcast by going to podcastcrusher.com, or you need to get some articles written and post them on your blog or drip feed them out. Or maybe for paid traffic, just set up a quick $5 or $10 a day Facebook campaign. But rate these 10 areas of your business and on a scale of 1 to 10 and average them out. So you can tell, okay, well, maybe for this month, my business is at a 5.4. And then next month, it might be up to a 7 or might be down to a 5. But at least this way, you know where things are headed. Once again, not to be in a delusional la-la land, or not to be in a pity party, everyone feels sorry for me kind of state, but to get better. And by being more detailed and by using a lot of these real quick tips and tricks, we can ourselves get better. So that's my question for you today. How is your online business and your personal life doing on a scale from 1 to 10? Join us inside of our membership area at incomemachine.com. If you need some month-to-month help, some guidance where we meet as a group and we tell you what things are working with the internet marketing right now, and we'll fix your websites, your email sequences, or figure out why you're not getting traffic, you're not getting sales, or help you with your niche, or help you with anything, join us inside of our monthly mastermind at doubleagentmarketing.com. And check out past episodes of this podcast at my blog at robertplank.com. Thanks a bunch. Leave us a quick review on iTunes. I look forward to talking with you on the very next episode of The Robert Plank Show.